It's time for another Two Women Talking. It's actually time for another Three Women Talking. I'm Leanna Kersner, tomboy.
I'm Song W. Erickson, girly girl.
And we are joined, Song is like, yay! Because we are joined by the one, the only authentic observer. Galatea is joining Two Women Talking. Galatea, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited about this conversation. So yeah, happy to be here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know some of Liana's audience crosses over with Galatea's.
Yes.
This has been pretty much since we started Two Women Talking and started bringing on guests. Galatea has been my dream guest. If you've been listening all along, you know I'm a huge fan. And if you follow me on social media, you may have seen that I actually did fan art. I absolutely adore Galatea, and I love her commentary and her opinions. I also think she's absolutely hilarious.
You're gonna give me a massive ego in a minute. So.
Well, look,
all right. So we're talking today traditional femininity and the woman of valor, the woman of valor trope. And it's funny because I dropped this on a so-called conservative Christian on social media earlier today, not thinking we were going to talk about this. But Song, I'll let you define this topic because obviously you are more the traditional femininity expert here. So where are we going to start regarding traditional femininity? What is it and what is it not?
So I want to start with particularly the woman of valor. And in conservative Christian circles, it's known as the proverbial 31 woman.
Yeah.
And it is in the book of Proverbs, the last one, Proverbs 31, includes a description of basically the ideal woman and the kind of wife a man should look for. And this is not about a woman who is submissive or who does what she's told the way a lot of people would think. Instead, it is a woman who she knows how to work. She takes care of her household. She weaves fabric and sells it to make her own money. And then she buys a vineyard so she can make even more money. And she is a good worker. She's a good businesswoman. You know, everything that we don't think of nowadays in terms of traditional femininity, because we have this image nowadays of, especially people on the right, of, you know, oh, women have it easy because men are the ones who are supposed to go out and work and make the money. We don't acknowledge a lot of the labor that women do, both in the fact that they keep the house, but also that it has been very customary for a woman to have what we now would think of as a side hustle, where like she does sell the goods she makes when she can make more than just what her family needs. And I mean, just the idea of running a household, we've lost a concept of just how much of an art that is, to make a budget and to make sure everyone has what they need, especially when winter comes. And so this idea of women as just lounging around and having it easy, being taken care of, and alternatively oppressed by men all at the same time, that's not traditional femininity. It never has been. It's such a delusion.
I mean, excerpts from the proverb, strength and dignity are her clothing as she laughs at the days to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. A lesson of kindness is on her tongue. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. Give her the fruits of her hands. Let her deeds be her praise at the gates. Now, Galatea, how do you think we got from this, which is the source text, to what's going on culture right now that you deconstruct a lot in your content?
Oh goodness, how did we get here? I think I don't know if I can fully answer that, but I think part of it is it's like a nostalgia for the past, isn't it? I think some of it's driven by men and then some by women. I think I saw an interesting video the other day actually, and I can't remember what the creator was called, but she was kind of talking about this online like trad, like traditional femininity movement. And you kind of get it from both ends. So you'll get the manosphere kind of promoting this idea, and then there's also like traditional like trad wives online who'll be kind of promoting it. And in this video, I really wish I could remember what the video and the creator was called, but she was saying that she reckons a lot of it, I guess nowadays, well, so now women are kind of expected to have a career and then also take on a lot of the time still take on the majority of like childcare and household work. So I think a lot of it is kind of like burnout, or just feeling like, or I guess maybe disillusionment as well with the corporate world or a career or whatever it happens to be. And then looking back through rose-tinted glasses at like this time when it was like, I think there is something to be said actually about women kind of feeling like out of touch with their femininity, or like now in this modern girl boss age, it's weak to be feminine, or you've got to, and again, I'm not, because I sometimes get accused of saying like you're trying to fit women into a box and say women have to be like this and men have to be like this. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think people should be free to express themselves however they like. I just can make the point that I think in general, it's probably true that most women have like feminine characteristics, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think it's fair that in order to be seen as strong or respected or have dignity, it's like to go into a man's world still. I think there's a hangover of you have to kind of act in like masculine ways, or kind of to, you know, and I think a lot of what we're seeing online now is a reaction against that, of women. Yeah, and there's something to that, and I definitely have a lot of sympathy for that, of women kind of wanting like, well, what's wrong with being feminine? What's wrong with wanting to have kids? Like, feel like I have to choose between, you know, career and kids, and oh God, I sometimes just want to stay at home and bake cakes and bread and make everything pretty, and that's really lovely, but that's also not how it was really. So I think there's definitely that, and then I think there's the same from men as well. I think a lot of men are feeling kind of disillusioned with the dating world, and yeah, I think a lot of it's kind of genuine gripes or frustrations with them. And while I would say I think a lot of the issues that they're kind of facing societally could be gone back to like technology or dating apps or the world just changing and people being more lonely and isolated, I think that anger's been directed at it's women's fault. It's because feminism, it's because women are changing. So therefore they're then harking back to like this idea that was never really real, of 1950s, not even how the 1950s was, but of 1950s kind of American like propaganda of this is like look how wonderful and booming our society is. And so that'd be sorry, that's a really long answer, but I think that's kind of my guess at how a lot of this has come about, is like people being lonely and unhappy and kind of looking for a way out or a reason. And I'm scared of change maybe, and I think rather than kind of thinking, okay, how is our world going to look like going forward, and how is gender roles going to look like going forward, I think that's a conversation worth having. And I don't think the answer is necessarily to say to get rid of them all completely, but we're never going to go back to this idea. Like, it's never going to happen. So yeah, but I think it's kind of I don't know. So sorry, I'll stop talking now, but that would be, yeah.
Well, no, that actually leads to one of my points of annoyance. There's a better phrase for that somewhere. I'm such a good author. There is this thing I see, because I have several guy friends who are moderate and right-leaning, and they very much bought into this feminism is the problem idea. And recently a couple of them shared this article about how women would rather be single with their cats. And again, they're blaming feminism. You know, it's feminism's fault that women don't want to do, the unspoken is, you know, what they should be doing, you know, settling down and having a family and raising kids. And what I continually come back to is, are you acknowledging, you know, the invisible labor of running a home and them being expected to work a full-time job while still raising the kids? And especially how many cases we see of man children nowadays who, like, they're happy to contribute to creating the kids, but when it actually comes to raising the kids, it's just, oh no, you know, that's a woman's job. They just, I'm sorry, but there's so many guys who it's like they just want to play video games when they get home and not actually do anything to contribute to their family. And I'm like, I try to point out, this is the reason why women don't want to be in relationships right now, because so often they end up with a disproportional amount of the labor. And of course, every time I say that, it's just, no, it's feminism's fault. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, just the blindness and this refusal to see that like there is a reason for this movement, and it's not just because women, but I mean it comes down to what the red pill space says about, oh, women are so gullible and they're so easily manipulated. And they seem to think, oh, that's what it is, women are just being easily manipulated by feminism, the same way they should be easily manipulated by their man. And even if that's not how they see it, that's really what it comes down to, essentially. And it's like, women aren't stupid. And like, especially if we're going to be forced to work full-time jobs and make the same amount of money as other people, we have the right to decide what we're going to do in the free time we get.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic game of politics, isn't it? I mean, misdirecting anger or some kind of resentment at a specific issue, group, or whatever it is that you want to change, that's kind of unrelated, to kind of push through your agenda. I see a lot of that happening. That's really interesting what you were saying though about you mentioned about women kind of, I guess, because I think it is true that women are kind of opting out of relationships in the same way some men are. But I saw I don't know if you know the YouTuber, well, he's a YouTuber and also I think a medical doctor as well, and a psychiatrist, Healthy Gamer. I think he's called Dr. K. But he's really, like, in terms of like, if I was going to advise men to like look at someone who would help their dating life, self-improvement, like mental health, all of these things, I'd be like, please go watch his channel, because it's everything the red pill claims to be and should be, but just isn't. But he did, touching on what you were saying, he did a video, well, I don't know when it was, but I saw it yesterday, about about this kind of relationship thing, of that, you know, in the past, and a few people have made this point, but in the past, really, all a man needed to bring to a relationship was a paycheck, because women couldn't, you know, people needed each other to be able to survive. So it was like, you have to get into a relationship, and you know, and that's it, you have to build a family and make it work, especially with the burden of, like, you know, as a woman, if you get pregnant and have kids without birth control, it's like you need a man who's there, who's can be providing. But yeah, he was kind of making the point that, like, the problem now is that and what I really like about him is he's very compassionate towards men's struggles as well, and he's acknowledging that there are problems, there are like issues, there's societal things here, but it's not women's fault. And it's like, for women now, it's like, if they're working loads, and if all a man is bringing is kind of a paycheck, it's like, well, they don't need that anymore. And if it's more work to be in that relationship, it's more trouble than it's worth. Then they're kind of thinking, well, you know, what's the point in this if they are just with a man child? But he's not just kind of phrasing it in the terms that these men are all like man children who can't, like, he's very compassionate towards the reasons for this. And I mean, I can't remember, again, I wish I could remember the video title, but I think it's so helpful, it would be so helpful for guys to listen to. But a lot of it been about, you know, them just like either not been able to deal with have emotions or mental health properly, and then it kind of, or feeling like they're not heard really in society. I guess that's the thing. And then all of that goes on to the woman they're in a relationship with, which is too big a burden for one person to carry. But then it's like, as a society, then we kind of need to do better with I think listening to men, because I think like that, like, as in their kind of their problems as well, because I think it does tend to be ignored. But then, and then the problem with that is then, of course, it gets into resentment, and it gets into, it's all feminism's fault and it's all women's fault, which isn't true. And I think, yeah, it's way more to do with kind of technology and industrialization than it does have to do with feminism. But also, I'm sorry, I'm really aware that I keep talking loads, but yeah. So
no, you're the guest. We brought you here for your opinions.
I'm still feeling called out about wanting to play video games when I get home from work. So
okay, no, Liana, you know what I mean.
I'm kidding. No, I know what you mean, and it's funny you mentioned Dr. K, because I know a couple of guys who felt like that video was unfair and way too harsh. That's come up a lot in conversations I've had. So it's really interesting to hear the other side, because it's that harsh but true thing. And listening to Galatea made me think of something, Song, you've said all the time, of that trope of the woman being the healer to a man, and the expectation that creates on both parties. And if you actually read pre-war literature, that whole concept is something that was a snapshot of the 1950s. And I think it's important to talk about why men were kind of checked out of child caring at that part, because they'd been gone. right? They came back from the Second World War after the First World War hitting the last generation of men. They're shell shocked, what we'd call PTSD now, combat trauma, and their kids were maybe 5 or maybe babies when they left, and now they're much, much older. They don't know their kids. And it in the US, and I think, Galatea pointing out that the whole trad movement is very much based on a 1950s media depiction of what American life was. Because, of course, you get in the UK and war rationing didn't end until the mid 1950s. It was a very, very different paradigm. And the depictions of families and the stories that were told. Yeah, very, very, very different, right? It's not the same at all. And it was more of a gradual improvement in the UK than the artificial tightrope based on, and this is why it's funny that it's a conservative thing. And I wonder if either of you ladies have something to say about this, because I'm sure it will get a pop out of song. Because the 1950s were a period of massive government spending to subsidize that white picket fence, mom stays home with the kids, dad, single family outcome, single family income, single family detached home lifestyle. The US spent wildly on that period. So not exactly a conservative principle, overflow of the New Deal, additional spending on cars and highways and subdivisions and all this stuff. We're still paying down that debt. So I want to talk about, as Galatea said, this lifestyle was never real. There was never this conservative 1950s lifestyle. It was built on the backs of massive progressive government spending. So, Song, where do you want to take us on that?
Well, I mean, I think it was even like before we started To Him and Talking, or about that time, you did a video breaking down the propaganda of masculinity in that era, and like how it was very much, part of the propaganda was, oh, the boys coming home need jobs, so the women have to go into the home.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you can attribute that to patriarchy, as some people do, but it was also, I don't even know if it was patriarchy so much as just trying to restore a level of normalcy.
Yeah. I mean,
and
I'm old enough to remember wax floors. Do either of you ladies remember wax floors?
No.
Wax floors are this symbol of what happened in the 50s and 60s, that they created a lifestyle that a homemaker was a full-time job. It wasn't that women didn't have a job. It's that it was full-time. And wax floors, my mother had this machine, and it looked like a little handheld Zamboni. It was, you plugged it in and it had these discs, and you put this wax on the floor and then you buffed it like a museum floor.
And, yes, I do know of that.
And this thing, it was a workout, but toting this thing around was a big deal. And we had carpet sweepers and carpet shampooers, and everything just took such a long time. And even with the technology that was making housework, each individual task, easier, there were more and more tasks put to have a proper home. Homes got bigger, the layout of space got different. The whole point was to make the domestic feminine space a full-time job, and then women were expected to do their hair and put on lipstick before their husbands got home. It was not real. It was all constructed, and this is documented. So, I mean, Galatea, I do think there's something to be said in that there is it's like they're creating a solution for a problem they don't quite understand. Would you say that's accurate?
In what sense?
Like, well,
give me half a sec. My dog, I'm just gonna quickly open the door and let him out. He's whiny,
Uh-oh.
Before he starts barking. Sorry, one sec.
Okay, I'm gonna pause. So it's almost as if there's this mismatch if they want an easy fix to this problem that you you identify, Galatea, about the everybody's miserable in a different way. Like women are like, what's the point in dating? And I mean, you look at Japan, that's a huge problem there.
Yeah.
And then men are miserable, are getting very mixed messages from society. And it's almost like this life that never was is the well-meaning but misguided quick fix to the problem. Do you think that's accurate, or is there more going on?
There's probably more going on. I'm not sure I could say what that is. But yeah, I think that's a lot of that is very true.
Because the whole trad thing is associated with the alt-right. I actually had somebody tell me the alt-right and the far right were the same thing. I don't think so, because the alt-right to me is a sort of meme lord, just burn it all down type, whereas the far right is, there's overlap, but
Yeah.
they're the very, very scary,
Yeah.
like legitimately bigoted types.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, you're clearly, both you and Song, the reason I enjoy you both is because you're both very outspoken. You're both what I would consider strong. And, yet you don't have the boho undercut and purple hair. Not that there's anything wrong with purple hair. I love the color purple, but you guys are both embodiments of you don't have to signal that. Right. But do you find, and both of you, we'll go Galatea first, Song second. Do you find that people don't know how to take you because of that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I think this is a problem now with just how polarized everything has become. You have to pick a side. Like I just very much feel that feeling. So
Yeah.
like sometimes I'll get people in my comment section having like kind of brain melts from both sides of the political spectrum, because they just, either they'll be going, you far leftist, man-hating, feminist extremist who doesn't think there's any difference between men and women. I mean, that was Rolo's problem, who literally, I mean, he should know better. He's a full-grown adult, like in his 50s, so he's properly should, he's a grown-up.
Just a fun little fact. His the audio book for his book The Rational Male ended up in the erotica section on Audible.
Oh my god.
Now I've since learned that like there is a glitch in Audible where a lot of books end up in the wrong section, but I still fell over laughing at that one.
So hilarious. That's very, very funny, because he takes himself very seriously as well. But this is one of the things he was in his video about me. He was like shouting at the screen, like at me, saying, "Men and women are different. Like you stupid cow. Men and women are different." Why? Like as if I didn't understand that. And then his brain kind of melted when it's like, wait, like it's like if I disagree with anything that, it's not even necessarily right wing. Red pill's kind of different, but they have a lot of overlap. But if I disagree with anything, that side of the culture war says, I must believe that there's no difference between men and women, which is ridiculous. I don't think that. But then, by the same token, if I'm saying men and women are different, I think that's obviously true. And I value like femininity, and I think there's value in that. And I don't think we should be trying to, make men feel emasculated or downtrodden either. Then I kind of get, you far right extremist who thinks that women have to stay at home and have to be like this, and every woman is like this, and women can't do this, and men have to do this, and that was Vorsh's problem as well. That was he was like calling me loads of things I'd never said, or thinking that I just wanted women to be baby making machines. It's like the world has gone mad. Can I? Yeah, and I think, I mean, my favorite creators online are people who are just nuanced and are going, well, it's not all black and white, and the truth seems to be somewhere in the middle. And that's not to say that they're sitting on the fence. I think kind of people who do that have like a bad reputation, but there's a lot of value in being like, yeah, it's just, I just feel like you have to pick a side, and if you don't, people get confused and both sides kind of dislike you because you're betraying them in one way or another. I feel that quite a lot.
So for those of you who are not familiar with Galatea's content, oh my god. So the thing with Vosh is that because she wore stockings in a video he responded to, he said that she wanted to live in Mad Men and be harassed.
Yeah.
Which just
I don't know if I can say the word. I don't want to get you banned off YouTube, but yeah.
You can, I'll bleep it if I need to.
Sexually harassed. Yes,
Yeah.
is the quote.
You wanted to get sexually harassed
I think
because you wore seamed stockings.
I don't know if they're even seamed.
They weren't. No, they were just tights. They weren't even stockings. But I remember the full quote because I watched it so many times because I put it in so many times. So it was something like, "She's wearing an effing skirt and stockings. She just wants to live in Mad Men and be sexually harassed by all the office boys."
That was
and
like
that's coming from like.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that was like when Hassan Piker called me a femcel over Mortal Kombat X. It's
Yeah, he's another idiot.
amazing what these so-called, because Vaush is ostensibly left wing, right? That's
Yes.
my understanding.
Yeah.
It's amazing when the mask drops
I
with
know.
some of these guys, and everybody this is something that frustrates me as somebody who teaches gender. It's gender and game design, because it is a system. And when we get into performance, what's the point in having a male performance and a female performance if the female performance isn't allowed to be feminine? It takes all the fun out of picking that experience, right? And it's amazing to me how guys like that can just say things like that, and everybody just continues on as if it didn't happen because it's inconvenient to the movement.
Well, it's really, this is why I won't like align myself with the left, because I just really think that there I'll probably get flack for saying this, but I think there is a lot of misogyny there, and they pretend that there isn't.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's like, and from so many, and that's why I've like, and obviously I don't mean, when I say this, I don't mean all men who say they're feminists. I don't mean that by any means, but a lot of the online, the politically active ones, the kind of quote unquote male feminists, like there's just a like seething like hatred of women. And then it becomes, feminism becomes this big stick to beat a woman with and try and control her. Like that's the ironic thing. And that's what I felt like Vorsh was doing. It's like, well, I was saying, hang on, these are the ways in which I value femininity. These are the ways in which I want to present as a woman. And he's going, oh, because you said that, you're like a dumb bimbo, a baby. Like it was like, honestly, it was amazing. Like every sexist thing you could have accused a woman of, he did. Like at one point, because I'd said there's value in being a mother. So then he's like throwing insults about just want to be a baby making machine and like all these degrading things. It's like, wow. This coming from a man who claims to be like anti-patriarchy. And it was just really like, but I find that there's a real dislike of, if not of women, then of femininity, or of women who present in a feminine way. And they do that by it's like they're not actually anti-misogyny or pro-women. It's pro their ideas, and any women who kind of slightly deviate from them or disagree are then allowed to be targeted with misogyny, because they don't actually care about misogyny. It's just about their like ideology, I guess. Which is the reason Vorsh kind of was able to say all these things, and a lot of his audience didn't care, was because he called me a TERF. Which, bearing in mind, I had never mentioned trans people in that video. I wasn't talking about them. I didn't
you were saying
them.
men and women are different.
Okay, no, let's be honest. It's because she has a British accent and he associated her with J.K. Rowling.
You're kidding.
No, that's true, actually. He said another British TERF was like the title. And also because of, that was it as well. He accused me of living in a castle because I had a British accent, like J.K. Rowling with loads of servants or slaves or something. It's like, I mean, okay. that's an interesting take. But yeah, no, I think a big part of it was actually that it was the accent mixed with the skirt and stockings, which he associated with kind of the 1950s, I guess, and then was like, oh, therefore she wants to live in Mad Men and be like, I don't know, it was bizarre. But yeah,
has he actually seen Mad Men and how women are treated on that show?
I have no idea. I've not seen it, so I don't know, but yeah.
Especially since Mad Men again was American, but yeah, I mean the women on that show that's part of the big theme of the show, is that the Dawn Drapers of the world fell in part because of the women they mistreated when they thought they had no power. And of course, those women rose, and knocked him off his pedestal. So that's, I mean, there's so many degrees of ignorance in these comments. And this is where we started this show, the whole tomboy and girly girl thing, because Song and I are very different. And, I met Song. I thought she was really smart, but she is very, very, very girly. And I wanted to show both. I think it's ridiculous the way, oh God, I'm gonna do a Swift drop. She wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts, that whole thing, the way we binary everything. There's men, there's women, and there's no Venn diagram in terms of interests. And if anybody's interested, the science is actually, there are intersex differences, but the intra-sex differences between individuals are more significant than the intersex differences. So sex difference is not predictive of personality or interest. We know that. It's been established again and again and again and again. And so to me, it's such a waste of time to fight over statements like men and women are different, because it's just too broad to actually prove or disprove.